found something amazing. You won't believe it. Meet me at the old oak tree, now!
Omar stared at his phone. Kareem and his crazy messages. What was it this time? He sighed. Omar knew he couldn't resist a good mystery. He grabbed his backpack and rushed out. He knew the old oak tree well. It stood at the foot of Whispering Mountain, a place whispered to be full of secrets. Omar shivered. He hoped Kareem wasn't getting into too much trouble. Omar spotted Kareem by the oak tree, bouncing with excitement. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the landscape. The oak tree, with its sprawling branches, stood like a sentinel in the twilight. Omar couldn't help but smile at Kareem's infectious energy. It had been a long week, and this adventure was exactly what they needed to unwind. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine filled their lungs, invigorating their spirits.
Dude, you won't believe what I found! Kareem's voice was filled with a mix of excitement and urgency. His eyes sparkled with the thrill of discovery, and Omar could see that whatever Kareem had found, it was something extraordinary. The anticipation was palpable, and Omar's curiosity was piqued.
Kareem shouted, waving his arms. He was practically dancing on the spot, unable to contain his excitement. Omar quickened his pace, eager to see what had gotten his friends so worked up. The forest around them seemed to come alive with the energy of their adventure.
A hidden cave! It's this way, come on! Kareem's voice echoed through the trees, and Omar felt a rush of adrenaline. A hidden cave? The possibilities were endless. What secrets could it hold? Ancient artifacts, hidden treasures, or perhaps something even more mysterious?
Kareem dashed off towards the mountain, leaving Omar trailing behind. Omar's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to keep up. The path was uneven, and roots jutted out from the ground, threatening to trip him up. But the excitement of the chase kept him going. He could hear Kareem's laughter ahead, a beacon guiding him through the forest. Omar was hesitant. Whispering Mountain was said to be dangerous. Stories of people getting lost or encountering wild animals had always made him wary. But Kareem's enthusiasm was hard to resist. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. The forest seemed to close in around him, the shadows growing longer and more menacing. But Kareem's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon they were both scrambling up a rocky path. The climb was steep and the rocks were slippery with moss. Omar's legs burned with the effort, but he pushed on, driven by the promise of adventure. The higher they climbed, the more the forest opened up, revealing breathtaking views of the valley below. The air grew colder as they climbed. The temperature dropped noticeably, and Omar could see his breath forming small clouds in the air. He pulled his jacket tighter around him, wishing he had brought something warmer. The chill seemed to seep into his bones, but the excitement of the adventure kept him moving forward. The sun, now hidden behind the mountain, cast long, eerie shadows. The landscape was bathed in a twilight glow, and the shadows seemed to dance and shift with every step they took. It was both beautiful and unsettling, a reminder of the mountain's mysterious reputation. Omar felt a sense of awe and trepidation as they ventured deeper into the unknown. Omar felt a shiver down his spine. The stories of Whispering Mountain played in his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, made his heart race. He glanced at Kareem, who seemed unfazed, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. He wished he had brought a jacket. The cold was becoming unbearable, and he could feel his fingers growing numb. But turning back now was not an option. They were too far in, and the promise of the hidden cave was too enticing. Omar steeled himself, determined to see this adventure through to the end. The cave entrance was hidden behind a curtain of vines. It was almost as if nature itself was trying to keep it a secret, shrouding it in mystery and intrigue. The vines were thick and intertwined, making it difficult to see what lay beyond. The air was thick with the scent of earth and greenery, adding to the sense of adventure that hung in the air. Kareem pushed through first, Omar right behind him. They had been planning this exploration for weeks, ever since they first heard rumors of the hidden cave. The excitement was palpable as they finally stood at the entrance, ready to uncover its secrets. The vines gave way reluctantly, almost as if they were alive and trying to hold them back. The air inside was damp and smelled of moss. It was a stark contrast to the fresh, earthy scent outside. The walls were slick with moisture and the ground was uneven and treacherous. Every step they took echoed through the cavern, amplifying the sense of isolation and mystery. The deeper they went, the more the cave seemed to come alive. with the sounds of dripping water and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. Omar switched on his torch, illuminating the cave. Carvings covered the walls. The light revealed intricate patterns and symbols that seemed to tell a story, one that had been forgotten by time. The carvings were unlike anything they had ever seen, with figures and shapes that defied explanation. It was as if the cave itself was a living, breathing entity, holding onto its secrets with a jealous grip. Strange symbols and figures like nothing Omar had ever seen. They were both beautiful and eerie, evoking a sense of wonder and unease. Each carving seemed to pulse with a hidden energy, as if they were more than just marks on stone. Omar couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the cave was aware of their presence. He ran his hand over the rough surface, a chill running down his arm. The stone was cold and unyielding, yet it seemed to hum with a faint vibration. It was a sensation that was both thrilling and unsettling, as if the cave was trying to communicate with him. The chill spread through his body, making him shiver despite the humid air.
This is incredible! Kareem's voice was filled with awe and excitement. He had always been the more adventurous of the two, always looking for the next thrill. But even he was taken aback by the sheer magnitude of what they had discovered. The cave was more than just a hidden gem, it was a portal to another world, one that was filled with mystery and wonder.
Kareem whispered, his voice echoing in the silence. The cave seemed to amplify every sound, making even the smallest whisper sound like a shout. It was a place that demanded respect and reverence, a place where the past and present seemed to collide. The echoes created an eerie symphony, adding to the sense of otherworldliness that permeated the cave.
It's like something out of an adventure book. Omar's excitement was contagious. He had always been a fan of adventure stories, and now he was living one. The cave was like a scene straight out of his favorite books, filled with hidden treasures and ancient secrets. It was a dream come true, and he couldn't wait to see what else they would discover.
Omar had to agree. The cave was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was a place that seemed to exist outside of time, a place where the past and present coexisted in a delicate balance. Every corner held a new surprise, every shadow a new mystery. It was a place that challenged his understanding of the world, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. He'd never seen anything like it. The cave was a treasure trove of history and mystery, a place that seemed to defy explanation. Every carving, every symbol told a story, one that was waiting to be uncovered. It was a place that demanded exploration, a place that promised adventure and discovery. Omar felt a sense of excitement and anticipation, eager to see what else the cave had in store. But a sense of unease settled over him. The cave was beautiful and mysterious, but it was also unsettling. There was a sense of danger that lurked in the shadows, a feeling that they were not alone. The carvings seemed to watch them, the air seemed to hum with a hidden energy. It was a place that demanded respect, a place that held its secrets close. This place felt ancient, powerful, and maybe a little bit dangerous. It was a place that seemed to hold the weight of history, a place that had seen countless generations come and go. The air was thick with the scent of earth and stone. The walls seemed to pulse with a hidden energy. It was a place that demanded exploration, but also caution. Omar and Kareem knew that they were standing on the edge of something incredible, something that would change their lives forever. They ventured deeper, the cave floor sloping downwards. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. Then, at the end of a narrow passage, they found it. A soft light pulsed from a crevice in the rock. It seemed to emanate from a small, intricately carved box. The box glowed with an otherworldly light illuminating the small chamber.
Whoa.
Kareem breathed, stepping closer.
Wait!
Omar hissed, his heart pounding.
We don't know what that is. It could be dangerous.
But Kareem, drawn by an invisible force, was already reaching for the box. As soon as Kareem's fingers touched the box, the cave rumbled. Dust rained down from the ceiling.
Kareem, let go!
Omar stumbled back, fear gripping his throat. The light from the box intensified, bathing the chamber in an eerie glow. The carvings on the walls seemed to writhe and twist in the shifting light.
Omar, I can't! My hand is stuck!
Kareem, his eyes wide with fear, tried to pull his hand back, but it was stuck. The box seemed to have a hold of him.
We have to get out of here.
Omar yelled, grabbing Kareem's arm. Together they pulled with all their might. Finally, with a sickening crack, Kareem broke free. The box clattered to the ground, its glow dimming. The cave shook violently now, the walls groaning, rocks tumbled from the ceiling. Omar and Kareem scrambled back down the passage, the ground pitching beneath their feet. They ran as fast as they could, the roar of the collapsing cave echoing behind them. Omar could hear Kareem's ragged breaths, could feel the heat of his panic. Finally, they burst out of the cave entrance, collapsing onto the soft earth, gasping for breath. The sunlight seemed blinding after the eerie glow of the cave. Omar lay there for a moment, heart pounding, trying to catch his breath. He looked over at Kareem, who was staring back at the cave entrance, his face pale.
What was that?
Kareem stammered, his voice trembling. Omar shook his head. He didn't know. But he knew one thing. They were lucky to be alive. He glanced back at the cave entrance, now partially obscured by fallen rocks. He could have sworn he heard a faint whisper, carried on the wind. It sounded like a voice, ancient and powerful, calling out from the depths of the mountain, calling out for the artifact. Omar shivered, pulling his jacket tighter around him. The cold was biting, seeping through every layer of clothing he had on. The wind howled through the trees, making the branches creak and groan. It was as if the forest itself was alive, whispering secrets and warnings to those who dared to enter its depths. Omar's breath came out in visible puffs, each exhale a reminder of the freezing temperatures they were enduring. He glanced around, taking in the desolate landscape. The snow-covered ground stretched out endlessly, broken only by the occasional tree or rock formation. It was a harsh, unforgiving environment, but Omar knew they had to press on. He knew this wasn't over. The journey had just begun, and there were many challenges ahead. Omar's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. He couldn't afford to let his guard down, not even for a moment. The stakes were too high, and the consequences of failure were too dire to contemplate. He steeled himself, drawing on every ounce of determination he had. This was a test of endurance, both physical and mental, and he was determined to see it through to the end. The cave, the carvings, they were unlike anything Omar had ever seen before. The entrance loomed before them, dark and foreboding, like the gaping maw of some ancient beast. The carvings on the walls told a story, one that was both fascinating and terrifying. They depicted scenes of battles, of gods and monsters, of heroes and villains. It was a history that seemed to come alive under the flickering light of their torches. Omar couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and dread as he took it all in. The glowing box, it was all too strange to be a coincidence. The light it emitted was otherworldly, casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if it were a living, breathing entity. Omar reached out to touch it but hesitated, unsure of what might happen. The box seemed to call to him, beckoning him closer, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was dangerous. He pulled his hand back, deciding it was best to leave it alone for now. He looked at Kareem, who was still staring at the cave, a strange mix of fear and fascination on his face. Kareem had always been the more adventurous of the two, always eager to explore the unknown, but even he seemed to be taken aback by what they had discovered. The cave, the carvings, the glowing box, it was all too much to take in at once. Omar could see the wheels turning in Kareem's mind, trying to make sense of it all. He knew they had to be careful, that one wrong move could spell disaster.
Come on, let's get out of here. Kareem's voice was steady, but there was an edge of urgency to it. He didn't need to say it twice. Omar nodded and they both turned to leave the cave. The air outside was a welcome relief from the oppressive atmosphere inside. They moved quickly, their footsteps crunching in the snow. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees casting long, dark shadows in the fading light. They had to get back to the safety of their camp before nightfall.
As they made their way down the mountain, the setting sun casting long shadows around them, Omar couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The beauty of the sunset was lost on him, overshadowed by the events of the day. The mountain trail was treacherous, and they had to watch their step carefully. One wrong move could send them tumbling down the steep slope. The cold was relentless, and the wind seemed to cut through them like a knife. But they pressed on, driven by the need to put as much distance between themselves and the cave as possible. Omar couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made him jump. He glanced over his shoulder repeatedly, half expecting to see someone, or something, following them. The forest was full of hidden dangers, and he knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The sense of paranoia was almost overwhelming, but he forced himself to stay focused. They had to keep moving, had to stay ahead of whatever might be out there. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that this was only the beginning of their adventure. The cave had been just the first step, a glimpse into a world that was far more dangerous and mysterious than they had ever imagined. There were questions that needed answers, mysteries that needed solving, and Omar was determined to uncover the truth no matter what it took. The adventure was far from over, and he knew that the challenges ahead would test them in ways they couldn't even begin to comprehend. But he was ready. They both were, and together they would face whatever came their way.